Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. Study to know what trust is. They'll violate at any moment. Minorities, they don't be on it. Walk on eggshells, keep it cautious. Anxiety, I'm feeling nauseous. Ignorance is bliss till you learn what the cost is. Said Moors, we on the rise. Look at us now. Push the mission forward. Make the prophet proud. Noble Jew Ali, welcome to the city. 4th generation. No, he walking with me, more shit. Woke up, realized I was on a war ship. Trading me like chattel property. Trading places, playing Monopoly. Authentic, can't copy me. Lies, can't rock with me. Truth, ever sharpens me. Love, despite you mocking me.
Peace, Islam Moors. Happy Sunday. Peace, peace. On my good old Sunday walk. So, I hope the information I've been putting out, how you doing? I hope the information I've been putting out has been helpful. And has been giving a lot of clarity to Moors. One thing that I want to break down, and we really got to get an understanding of this, understanding and overstanding, as far as dealing with these states and the United States of America, which is the de jure government, which was recognized by a de jure government, which made it de jure, right? I'm not talking about the United States Corporation Company. So in dealing with immigration, you know, our status as nationals of the United States of America, let's comprehend that. We're not talking about nationals of the United States. We're talking about nationals of the United States of America. If you look up the term United States, when dealing with Title 8, as far as aliens and nationality goes, you'll see that the United States also includes the continental United States. You know, because when you look at the definition, it says including the District of Columbia, American Samoa, Guam, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. But it also includes the continental United States. When you look up the continental United States is the several states. The several states are the actual republics. I'm going to repeat that one more time. The several states are the actual republics, meaning the several states being the original 48 states that was created based off the treaty designated in 1786, okay, which pretty much gave birth to the American Constitution in 1789, okay, which is in agreement with Moorish law. Let's comprehend that. So, the several states, meaning Washington State, not the state of Washington, Washington State, New York State, Virginia State, Texas State, California State, Nevada State, Utah State, Minnesota State, North Carolina State, South Carolina State, Pennsylvania State. You see what I'm saying? So all these states are the several states, okay? And when you look at the birth of the United States of America, it was originally 48 states. If you read Expatriation and Citizenship for the United States, I can't recall the exact page right now, but don't worry, I'll make a cut in this video where I'll pull up that reference, but essentially it's stating that there's a separation of powers between state and federal. However, they do not overlap, nor do they interfere with one another. But those two things combined is what creates your full citizenship. State and federal. State and federal is what creates your full citizenship. I'm going to say that one more time. State and federal is what creates your full citizenship. Remember what state was, right? State is society, a group of people coming together under a common history, common culture, common ancestry, okay, for their greater good. Now, your state should be your indigenous community. And being that your indigenous community, or some version of your indigenous community in ancient times, existed on this same landmass, today in this modern time, where the landmass has been renamed and recovered with a colorable jurisdiction, you got to make it work. You got to bring the ancient to now. And now is not going to look like ancient. The principles are going to be there. But the now is not back then. And back then is not going to look like now. Okay? When I say look like, meaning the visual. Look. This is what things look like now. Didn't look like this back then. Okay? So, understanding the fact that ancestral jurisdiction has been redesignated, we still carrying the ancestral titles of our ancestors. We're still entitled to protection, okay, underneath the laws of our state. So what is your state? Your state is your indigenous community. You ask me what my state is. My state is Sunel Shi Amaru Republic. That is my state. Okay? That is my state. Now, when you're talking about federal United States of America. Why? Because if you read the Articles of Confederation, what's the whole purpose of the Articles of Confederation, y'all? The Articles of Confederation was created to create a more perfect union. A more perfect union. What more of a perfect union can you have when you have established your state, your juridical body? Because in international law, state is a person. So when you've created your trust, okay, because if we're dealing in Title 8 as well, a foreign state is an entity or organization that is under trusteeship. That's the whole purpose of having a trust. A state is a trust. A state is a trust. So a foreign state is a trust under foreign law. Okay? Our ancient ancestral traditions and customs are foreign. Okay? That's why it's private. Publicly now, dealing with federal. United States of America. This is why the passports is given out to nationals and citizens. Alike. But you need to understand, a passport, just having a passport alone doesn't pull you outside the 14th Amendment. This is why I say people need to comprehend. At the end of the day, even when you have your passport, it's still an entity. It's still a person. It's not you. Passports expire every 10 years. It's not you. That is the pass that we all are given because we are all going to come under one sign and signal when we meet out at sea. That's in our treaty. So passport, right, the ability to pass through the ports, but also have protections available to us. Why? Because the dictates of our state is the laws that govern us. So now, like I said, your state should be located in a state republic. Your state or your society should be located in one of the several states. That's the difference. Your state or your society needs to be located in one of the several states. One of the several states would be one of the so-called states which altogether make up the United States of America. Okay? So if you want to be an American national,
you need to have your state that's located geographically in a state republic. And yes, your state would be your indigenous community or society, where you have laws that you utilize to govern yourselves. You have a mode of operandi. You have laws in place. You have your traditions and customs. You have your religious dictations, not dictations. I should say your religious expressions, or you know what I'm saying. You have your religious expressions in place, and your national character definitely got to be in place. And then from there, when you need to do commerce, right? Because commerce is dealing with international law. So when you need to do your commerce, guess what? You deal with your treaty. That's the whole point of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, and that's the whole point of the passport, dealing with the United States of America. Did you know that prior to it being a passport, it was called a certificate of non-citizenship? But see, giving out certificates of non-citizenship made more work for the secretary. From the Department of State. So they decided to, limit the amount of work they had to do and make it more smooth by just handing out passports rather. So every passport that is handed out is actually a certificate of non-citizenship. I'm going to say that one more time. A passport is actually a certificate of non-citizenship. Because like I said, everyone needs to be at a place where they have their national ID or their state ID. And when I say state, I'm not talking about Washington State, Florida State, New York State. I'm talking about you have your state ID from your state, your indigenous state government that is geographically located at a state republic, which would be considered one of the several states. Okay? And then from there, right, from your state, right, being fully functional at the state republic level, then you can move on into the United States of America. Get your passport with a letter of recommendation from your state or from your society. Y'all need to understand how this works, man. Y'all need to understand how consular affairs works. And I'm not even speaking like I know everything. I don't. I'm learning as I go. But it is pretty if you're waiting for someone to tell you you're good to go, you're going to be standing there waiting forever. It's you attain the information and then you apply it. This is birthright. You don't need authorization, right? We're putting things in place because this is chess. So we're setting up ourselves to win, because we've been losing for a minute, y'all. We've been losing for a minute because we've been making hasty moves. We haven't been planning properly. We haven't been setting things up properly. And that's the only way to win. All right? That's the only way to win. So, having your state protections in place, your religious protections, then having your federal protections combined together is what makes up your citizenship. This is what encompasses an American national. Look at the Jewish community. The same thing I'm talking about now, I'm talking about the Jewish community. Do you think the Jewish community, if you ask a Jewish person what citizen are they a state of, you think they're going to say they're a state of Washington? No, they are a citizen, they are a national of the Jewish community. The Jewish community is considered a state. They have their own society, they got their own laws, they got their synagogue within every community. Okay? They have their Torah, they got their certain rituals and things like that. So that's in place already. Think about it. And then everyone in the Jewish community, that's a national of that community, right? They have their religious freedoms respected. And then they have a passport, meaning they have their federal protections. Now, that doesn't mean you ain't going to see some with state IDs. But like I said earlier, in order to get a passport, you got to show that you are functioning with a state. So, guess what? Yeah, have a state ID. Driver's license, whatever. As long as this is in your free national name with your religious headdress on. That's the main key. Then get your passport. Update your information with Social Security in the name of your religion. It is the duty, it is your duty and obligation to secure and protect yourself and make sure the record is corrected. If you leave it uncorrected, then you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to get harassed. You got to correct the record, because we are citizens of the several states. Okay? I know it's going to be hard to grasp. Look up the continental United States. You see what I'm talking about. The continental United States. The continental continent. America is a continent, right? The continental United States is what we need to be looking into. Okay?
What does it mean to be a national of the United States? First off, we're going to get clarity on this, right? So right now we're in the USC Title 8, Section 1401. Nationals and citizens of the United States at birth. Okay? The following shall be nationals. What is a national? The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. Permanent allegiance. Okay? We're going to break down this word allegiance. That's not what everybody thinks it is. And also, too, United States. The term United States, except as otherwise specifically herein provided, when used in a geographical sense, means the continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands of the United States, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. So we're going to find out more in depth what the continental United States is in reference to the United States, as well as, let me X out of here, nationals, right? Person means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. Permanent allegiance to a state. So, a lot of people's interpretation, I feel, based off this, is that when they say permanent allegiance to a state, you're thinking about the United States or the actual state, like Washington State or New York State. Like Washington State, New York State, Nevada State, etc., etc. But this is not actually what it's talking about in reference to our position. See, because there's been remedy made all across the board, because that's part of constitutional law. You have to leave a remedy. You have to, even if you do some F stuff, F stuff, you got to leave remedy for someone to clear up the mess. So, a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. Now, mind you, I'm going to go in right here. So we're still in Title 8. This is Section 1101A, number 14. The term foreign state includes outlying possessions of a foreign state, but self-governing dominions or territories under mandate or trusteeship shall be regarded as separate foreign states. What's a foreign state now? Outlying possessions of a foreign state, but self-governing dominions or territories under mandate or trusteeship. So then I ask you, Morris, if you have an entity or a person in regards to international law, you've established a trust relationship with this person, meaning the entity, that the entity is going to preserve and hold all of your wealth to preserve and pass down on to future generations, then that's a trusteeship. Whether you're acting in the position of a trustee within your own trust, or whether you make the entity in itself your trustee. Either way, this is trusteeship. You don't have trusteeship without a trust in place. So what it's saying is that a foreign state includes outlying possessions of a foreign state, but self-governing dominions or territories under mandate or trusteeship shall be regarded as separate foreign states. So, with the understanding of what a foreign state is, let's go back to national. See here? National and citizens of the United States at birth. What is a national? The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. So then I ask you, as an indigenous being, what is your state? Because if your state is Washington or California or Nevada, you're still not thinking properly. Because as a national of the United States, and let's go back to what the United States means again.
except as otherwise specifically herein provided, when used in a geographical sense, means the continental United States, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands of the United States, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Now, let's go into this term here, the continental United States. Because I already covered the fact that you have a foreign state. If you have a trust in place that's under, and you have your articles in place or your bylaws, and there's a trust relationship established with you and your proper person as an indigenous person, that's already dealing in international law. That's already considered a foreign state. Because now you got to read the rights of indigenous peoples, so you can comprehend the fact that we have a right to preserve our own institutions. Okay? As indigenous peoples. So, the continental United States. I'm going to bring y'all up to here. Check this out, y'all. I know y'all like this. Look at this. Continental United States facts. Kittle. The contiguous United States consists of the 48 adjoining U.S. states. What are the U.S. states? Here are the U.S. states. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Okay, 48 of them. Let's go back. So the 48 adjoining U.S. states plus Washington, D.C., federal district, on the continent of North America. The term excludes the non-contiguous states of Alaska and Hawaii and all offshore United States territories and possessions, which are American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The greatest distance on a Great Circle route entirely within the 48 contiguous states is 2,802 miles. 4,509 kilometers between Florida and the state of Washington. The greatest north-south line is 1,650 miles. Together, the 48 contiguous states and Washington, D.C. occupy a combined area of 3,119,884.69 square miles, which is 1.58% of the total surface area of Earth. Of this area, 2,959,064.44 square miles is land, composing 83.65% of U.S. land area, similar to the area of Australia. I don't want to keep going on in this. Here we go. The contiguous United States will be placed 5th in the list of sovereign states and dependencies by area. The total area of the country, including Alaska and Hawaii, ranks 4th. Brazil is the only country that is larger in total area than the contiguous United States, meaning the 48 states placed together. Ain't that some shit? Brazil is the only country that is larger in total area than the contiguous United States. Brazil. Here we go. Continental United States. Because Alaska is also on the North American continent, the term continental United States would also include that state. So the term is sometimes qualified with the explicit inclusion or exclusion of Alaska to resolve any ambiguity. The term was in use prior to the admission of Alaska and Hawaii as states of the United States, and at that time usually excluded outlying territories of the United States. However, even before Alaska became a state, it was sometimes included within the continental U.S. Okay? Do I have to keep on going? No. No, I don't have to keep on going about that. Let me go back. So the continental United States is the 48 states. 48 states is also known as the several states. And we're going to put the pieces together. So we understand here, we're dealing with the United States and a national. It's a person owing allegiance to a state. Now, Question is, now what if the state that you have allegiance to is a foreign one? Now what? Because they speak of this right here. A foreign state. Under trusteeship, under mandate, or trusteeship. Okay? So then I ask you, do you have your trust in place? Do you have your state? Then we're going to get to this passport thing, right? Let me see if there's certain things I want to get in. That's a good view, right? Pull that up. Oh, that's right. Allegiance. That's perfect, though. I'll line it up right here. So here we go. This is Title 22 of United States Code. This is dealing with foreign relations and intercourse. Persons entitled to passport. No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. Whether owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. What's the United States again? The United States means the continental United States, as well as Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, etc., etc. And then when we pull up the, oh, did I get rid of that already? So what this says. No. Let's pull this up. Continental United States law and legal definition. Continental United States includes the several states and the District of Columbia, but does not include Alaska or Hawaii. Remember, we just read how Alaska and Hawaii are normally excluded from the several states, because in the beginning it was just the 48 states minus Alaska and Hawaii. Okay, so the continental United States is encompassing the boundaries of the American continent, but it's mainly focusing on the several states, which is the original 48 state republics that were established. Now, when we go into Title 8, dealing with aliens and nationality, they speak of a foreign state. And a foreign state is one that is held under mandate or trusteeship. You know, and a foreign state meaning that it's self-governing. So as indigenous peoples, we know we're foreign to these states, okay? We're foreign to these states, which is why we have our own foreign state. Think about the Jewish community. The Jewish community, they have their own community, and they have a synagogue within their own community, right? That's considered a foreign state. So you think the Jewish people are residents of the state? No, they're not, because they are nationals. Let's go back here. They are nationals, not here. They're nationals because they have permanent allegiance to a state. And that state would be foreign, being that it's their community. And within every community, they have what? A temple or a church. That's normally called a synagogue. Okay? I'm just letting you see how it works. So yes, Jewish people are nationals of the United States too. So how is it that everyone is being able to reap the benefit of being a national, except for you, and you're the indigenous one to this land? National. Okay. So being that you have your estate set up, your trust set up, and you are part of an indigenous community or a society, okay? Now, I'm going to pull this up, because this is going to reel me back into, am I in place? Yeah, I'm here. It's going to reel me right back. So boom. What was I just at? Boom, got rid of that, boom, took care of that. Okay, here we go. This is Title 8, United States Code, Section 1102, Diplomatic and Semi-Diplomatic Immunities. Everyone talks about diplomatic immunity. Let's get a true inner, and overstanding of what that is, right? Because you don't find many Moors that'll just pull up diplomatic community. And let's read about it together. So we don't got to guess or wonder, right? Except as otherwise provided in this chapter. For so long as they continue in the non-immigrant classes enumerated in the section, the provisions of this chapter relating to ineligibility to receive visas and the removal of aliens shall not be construed to apply to non-immigrants. Remember, we fall in that class because we're not foreign to this country. We're not foreign to this land. Okay. Within the class described in paragraph 15A1 of section 1101A of this title, except those provisions relating to reasonable requirements of passports and visas as a means of identification and documentation necessary to establish their qualifications under such paragraph. Necessary to establish their qualifications under such paragraph 15A1 and under such rules and regulations as the President may deem to be necessary. The provisions of subparagraphs A through C of section 11A2A3 of this title. But let's go back here. See, within the class described in paragraph 15A1, right? Except those provisions relating to reasonable requirements of passports and visas as a means of identification and documentation necessary to establish their qualifications under such paragraph 15A1. So let's go to paragraph 15A1. Hey y'all, look, we're at paragraph 15A1. Okay? Why don't you just grab the laptop?
We don't have internet.
Yes, we do. It's in the room.
We have internet now.
Yes, we do. It's in the room. Okay. Now, the term immigrant means every alien except an alien who is within one of the following classes of non-immigrant aliens: an ambassador, public minister, or career diplomatic or consular officer who has been accredited by a foreign government recognized de jure by the United States and who is accepted by the President or by the Secretary of State and the members of the alien's immediate family. So now, where do the passports come from? Passports come from the Department of State, specifically underneath the office of the Secretary of State, right? And it's coming from the Bureau of Consular Affairs. That's where the passports come from. They come from the Bureau of Consular Affairs, coming from the department, from DC, right? From the Department of State, okay? Federal. Let's look up consular officer. The term consular officer means any consular, diplomatic, or other officer or employee of the United States designated under regulations prescribed under authority contained in this chapter for the purpose of issuing immigrant or non-immigrant visas, or when used in subchapter 3 for the purpose of adjudicating nationality. Say what now? Subchapter 3 for the purposes of adjudicating nationality. Adjudicating what? Nationality. So the term consular officer means a consular, diplomatic, or other officer or employee of the United States. We know what the United States means. We're talking about the several states, or the continental United States, right? Designated under regulations prescribed under authority contained in this chapter for the purpose of issuing immigrant or non-immigrant visas, or when used in subchapter 3 for the purpose of adjudicating nationality. So now, I'm going to pull up where's subchapter 3 out. Where you at, subchapter 3?
Yeah.
Oh, that part up. Oh, we got subchapter 1 back. We go to subchapter 3. Boom. Subchapter 3. Okay, so this is what subchapter 3 is: nationality and naturalization. Okay, so understand, when you get a passport as a national, being indigenous, you are being classified.
No.
Because your passport is coming from the Bureau of Consular Affairs, and because when you apply for your passport, you're going to have a letter written on your behalf by a government, an indigenous government, your own indigenous government, community, or society, who can write on your behalf to express your religious needs, as far as needing to have your religious headdress shown in your passport photo. You need to have a letter written on your behalf by a indigenous government. It should be Moorish, to be real with you, because the only indigenous really is Moorish. So, and of course, we all know Morocco is recognized de jure by the United States, so that's no issue. So understand now, we're coming from a foreign state, right? We're also non-immigrant aliens, okay? Because we're from a government that's recognized de jure, okay? Now, let's go deeper in. All right, so we understand the United States is several states. I'm going to read this here. This is USC Title 18, sections 1541 to 1546. Okay? All right, don't look like that's more. Title 18 USC, subsection 1541 to 1546. Provide criminal penalties for offenses related to passports, visas, and related documents. Sections 1541 to 1544 exclusively concern passports. Sections 1545 deals with safe conducts as well as passports. Section 1546 deals with visas, permits, and related documents. A passport is defined at 8 USC section 1101 A30 as any travel document issued by competent authority showing the bearer's origin, identity, and nationality, if any, which is valid for the entry of the bearer into a foreign country. The Supreme Court has stated a passport is a document which from its nature and object is addressed to foreign powers, purporting only to be a request that the bearer of it may pass safely and freely, and is to be considered rather in the character of a political document by which the bearer is recognized in foreign countries as an American citizen. You see anything that says anything about a United States citizen? No. No, you don't. The United States citizen is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The United States citizen is the birth certificate. Now, if your mind thinks that birth certificate is you, then your mind is attached to that birth certificate. Therefore, you too are a United States citizen, which is distinct from an American citizen, which is a national, someone who has allegiance to a state, a permanent allegiance. And why wouldn't you have permanent allegiance to the United States? Especially after I read this document here that shows, well, I only got to speak to that. Why wouldn't you have allegiance to the continent? Right? We're not talking about the states or the corporate state ofs. We're talking about the continental United States of America, the landmass, the dirt, the soil. Okay? So understand that the passport acts as a political document. What does political mean? Political, relating to the government or the public affairs of a country. Synonyms: governmental, government, local government, ministerial, parliamentary. Ministerial, of, relating to, or characteristics of a minister. Let me see for myself, y'all. Political. Let's see here. Political legal definition. Political policy or the administration of the government. Political rights are those which may exercise in the formation or administration of the government. They are distinguished from civil rights, which are the rights which a man as regards other individuals and not in relation to the government. Okay? Your civil rights are not in relation to government. They're private rights, which come with being a national of a state. Okay? A political corporation is one which has principally for its object the administration of the government, or to which the powers of government or a part of such powers have been delegated. Okay? So now we know what political is dealing with. All right? Political is dealing with the public acts of the government. This is your public, okay? Not your private. It's because you're private, you should have your self-identification from your society or your state. All right? Before I even go into that, let me pull up this PowerPoint because I gotta pull up this I just have to pull up this Supreme Court case. In order for me to do that, I'm going to have to open up this slideshow here. Give me 1 second. One minute. All right, up and running. Just slide over here real quick. All right, let's find this now. Put some stuff here. State. Okay. 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 I'm pulling it up for y'all. Just be a little bit understanding. Okay. Here we go. So right here. Bam. I want y'all to take heed to this, y'all. This is a Supreme Court case law. I came across this in expatriation and citizenship for the United States. Okay. Bring this back. Okay. It seems thoroughly well recognized. Here we go. This is coming from page 44. All right, expatriation and citizenship. It seems thoroughly well recognized that from these two citizenships there arise two sets of rights. One set being within the protection of the federal government under the 14th Amendment, and the other left to regulation by the state. See Ex Part Kinney, 8793 Hughes 1, and cases cited. Where the rights of citizens of the United States are comprehensively but briefly sketched. Here we go. Now we're going to get in more depth. The people of the United States resident within any state are subject to two governments, one state and the other national. One state and the other national. But there need be no conflict between the two. The powers which one possesses, the other does not. So they complement one another. They complement one another. It's about bringing things into harmony, y'all. Public and private, state and federal. So think of state be your private, meaning your own religious society, and then you dealing with the public would be dealing with the United States of America, and not with the actual state itself. So it's your state and the United States of America. Once again, no conflict between the two. The powers which one possesses, the other does not. They are established for different purposes and have separate jurisdictions. Yeah, comprehend. They are established for different purposes and have separate jurisdictions. Together, they make one whole and furnish the people of the United States with a complete government, ample for the protection of all their rights at home and abroad, meaning private and public. Yeah, comprehend this, yo. This is so deep, okay? So, this is once again goes back to higher self, lower self. It's about bringing things into harmony and not trying to separate things. It all just comes back into harmony, okay? Because they're both one. Although what the powers that one possess, the other does not. So they balance each other out. They balance each other out. There's not one, oh, I'm over you or I'm over you. No, they're both here. Equal playing field. They both have their position. They both have separate jurisdictions, although together they make up the whole of your American citizenship. Your American citizenship is encompassed of your state and your federal protection. So as an indigenous peoples, like I said, our states are geographically located within the several states. I'm going to show you how it works because it's been done already. See, our ancestors was doing it already. I'm going to show you though. Check it. We'll see. I'm going to show you. No conflict, all right? They are established for different purposes and have separate jurisdictions. Together they make one whole and furnish the people of the United States with a complete government, ample for the protection of all their rights at home and abroad. True, it may sometimes happen that a person is amenable to both jurisdictions for one and the same act. This does not, however, necessarily imply that the two governments possess powers in common or bring them into conflict with each other. It is the natural consequence of a citizenship which owes allegiance to two sovereignties and claims protection from both. The citizen cannot complain because he has voluntarily submitted himself to such a form of government. He owes allegiance to the two departments, so to speak, and within their respective spheres must pay the penalties which each exacts from disobedience to its laws. In return, he can demand protection from each within its own jurisdiction. Public and private, y'all. So when you go out into the private, the public is not your jurisdiction. It's everybody's jurisdiction. It's social. So when you go out into the public, you want there to be a overall general outlining law for everyone, that applies for everyone in the public. That's how that should work. Okay? So yes, in the public, we all should come underneath one sign and signal when we meet at sea. That one sign and signal is the passport. Okay? And so, being that the United States of America is a is part and parcel of the Moorish Empire, and the United States of America is the 48 states, or the several states, which our ancestors created and have an interest in. Oh, I'm going to show you that too. And so, being that we have an interest in the fact that our ancestors had a direct and very big position to play in the development and the construction of the United States of America. A lot of people don't realize that. I'm going to put all these things to rest, though. So now, being that we understand the two forms of governments, one being the state, for us particularly, it's a foreign state, right? And also, we have our national in place, meaning we're dealing with federal, going through the Bureau of Consular Affairs, because we're communicating that, hey, we're an indigenous community that's already been here. Our ancestors actually helped establish what you're enjoying today. So we have an interest, okay, in the enjoyment of the protections. And we're not being protected outside of Morocco. This is what y'all need to understand too. We're not being protected outside of Morocco with the passport. We're actually being protected according to the laws of Morocco, because the American Constitution had to be agreed upon by the Sultan first, meaning it was already in alignment with Moorish law. So there is no separation of Moroccan law with American law. They're one and the same. That's the only way the treaty was agreed upon. That's the only way the American Constitution is even in existence right now. Okay? So, due to that fact, we need to understand that our protections, or these laws, are Moorish laws. We're still in Morocco. We're still in Morocco. We're still in Moorish jurisdiction. We're just made to believe that everything is United States, United States, United States. This is United States, that's United States. No, this is Morocco. That's Morocco. That's Moroccan. That's Moroccan. Okay? It's us, our mindset, that needs to change, and everything else around us will change. Okay? So being that this is Morocco, the landmass known as Morocco, anciently known as Morocco, modernly called America today. Okay? So we need to understand that allegiance, and where does allegiance come into play? Because remember, we have a treaty in place, right? So let's pull up allegiance. Get rid of it. That would so blow if I got rid of it. And I did. Allegiance. I'll go with Black's Law. Allegiance is meant the obligation of fidelity and obedience which the individual owes to the government under which he lives, or to his sovereign in return for the protection he receives. It may be an absolute and permanent obligation, or it may be a qualified and temporary one. The citizen or subject owes an absolute and permanent allegiance to his government or sovereign, or at least until by some open and distinct act he renounces it and becomes a citizen or subject of another government or another sovereign. The alien, while domiciled in the country, owes a local and temporary allegiance, which continues during the period of his residence. So, understanding that you have allegiance to the continental United States, you have allegiance to the several states, which is what the United States of America is. And you can find this if you read up upon the Articles of Confederation, which was ratified March 1st, 1781, about 6 years before the treaty. Okay? So, with that being said, we're going to go into this. All right, y'all. Let's go into allegiance real quick. By allegiance is meant the obligation of fidelity and obedience. we'll go into these words in a second, which the individual owes to the government under which he lives or to his sovereign in return for the protection he receives. It may be an absolute and permanent obligation, or it may be a qualified and temporary one. The citizen or subject owes an absolute and permanent allegiance to his government or sovereign, or at least until by some open and distinct act he renounces it and becomes a citizen or subject of another government or another sovereign. The alien, while domiciled in the country, owes a local and temporary allegiance, which continues during the period of his residence. So, understand that when we operate as state citizens of our indigenous society, combined with the obligations we hold with the United States of America due to our treaty, which offers us both our public protection due to our state, our indigenous state, and our private protection due to our indigenous state, and our public protection abroad due to the United States of America, which is created in our treaty. And once again, the treaty would not have been constructed unless it was agreed to by both sides of the United States of America and both of Morocco. So that means that the Constitution is in alignment with Moroccan law by default. So me subjecting myself to the laws of the United States of America is not me subjecting myself outside the laws of Morocco or the laws of the Moorish Empire. They're one and the same. The Constitution is the neutral meeting ground where both laws exist, where both laws, I should say, coexist. Okay? And that's how that functions. So understand that when we domicile in these particular states, or we're doing commerce at these state ofs, we're looked at as aliens because we're not residents. And the proof of us being nationals and not citizens of the United States is due to the reflection of our passport with our religious headdress on, and also our state ID from our indigenous society. That's what makes us a national. Think about it, like I said, like Jews. It's no different. Now, in Resolution 75, it specifies there's a Moorish American society. So let's look up what state is. A state is a body politic or society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage. So now that we know that a society is a state, then can you really understand, and understand how within Pennsylvania, which is one of the several states, there's a Moorish American society, meaning a state within the state, but the Moorish American society is not subject to the laws of Pennsylvania state. They're subject to their own internal religious ecclesiastical laws, which should be the divine 5 principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So being geographically located, that Moorish society, at Philadelphia Republic, being one of the several states, now they're within that more perfect union. Now they're part of the United States and United States of America in a Congress assemble, and by having their state ID, meaning their national ID, while their society is geographically located at that state republic, then, you know what I'm saying? So they have protections at the state level due to the fact that they're recognized at the state republic, you know what I'm saying, as a state, meaning a society, which is a state. So you got to understand how this works. It's like a box in a box in a box. So within these state republics, you can create your own state. You can create your own state within that state republic. And that's how you tie yourself into being part of the several states. I'm not saying you tie yourself into the state republic. I'm not saying that. Although that is a necessary process to get your passport. You understand what I'm saying? Because we've been in the system, but in the wrong status. So now we got to correct everything and come up out. But understanding that this is our system. We created it. That's a fact. So there's no need to run from it. We need to correct ourselves so it can work in our favor. Okay? So, knowing that a state is a society, okay, and those members of that Moorish American society who are Moors, okay, if they are not residents of the state, meaning the if they're not residents of Pennsylvania state, they are residents of the Moorish American society geographically located at Pennsylvania state. They should have their passports, because the treaty is between Morocco and the United States of America, not between Morocco and Pennsylvania state. This is how, when we are domiciling at these territories, we are looked at as aliens because we're not residents of that state. Therefore, we are aliens. And though we are aliens, we still have a temporary allegiance because we are still abiding by the laws to maintain the peace. That's all that means. Allegiance. And then look, this is Oxford Dictionary, 1828. I mean, not Oxford, Webster's Dictionary, 1828. Allegiance. Noun, Latin, allegio, of ad and lego, to bind. Okay? To bind. To bind. To bind. What did the Treaty of Peace and Friendship did between Morocco and the United States of America? The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States of America and Morocco, it bound us. It bound us. It bound two governments. It bound two governments and created one. It bound two governments and created one. It created one. I'm going to come back to this. Look, the tie or obligation of a subject to his prince or government. Now, may not necessarily be a prince, although with every state there is a head of state, and that head of state is obligated to the people, right? Now, the government are supposed to be the people, not the prince. The people. Within the organization, the person holding that office should be elected by the people. So that government, all the people are subject to. No different than me being subject to my mama because she made me. I'm subject to my mama and my daddy because they made me. I don't have a choice in that. I don't have a choice in that. Okay? So by being a Moor, you're automatically subject to the empire. But do you have a problem with being subject to yourself? Remember, two governments became one. All right. See here. Every native or citizen owes allegiance to the government under which he is born. This is called natural or implied allegiance, which arises from the connection of a person with the society in which he is born, and his duty to be a faithful subject, independent of any express promise. Express allegiance is that obligation which proceeds from express promise or oath of fidelity. Local or temporary allegiance is due from an alien to the government or state in which he resides. Not that he's a resident, but that he resides there. Because I told you, there's no term called resident in the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't speak about residence. Okay? Residence is dealing with the state of, corporate. But us as people, we reside. I reside at Washington State. Do you get where I'm saying? Although I'm subject to Sunel-Shi Amaru Republic. But Washington State Republic is part and parcel of the United States of America. Okay? So my government is geographically located at Washington State Republic. And then I have a more perfect union with the United States of America, which is DC at the Department of State level. That's where the passport comes into play. And then I have my national ID or my state ID from my indigenous society, my religious indigenous society called Sunel-Shi Amaru Republic. And this is how it operates. And then you establish another society geographically located at another state republic. See, because once you have your passport as yourself, reflecting your religious creed, then you can operate and you can journey or travel to all of the different state republics and do commerce at all of the state of those republics. I'm going to say that one more time. You can travel to all of the state republics, and then you can do commerce with the state of all those republics. That's what the passport allows you to do. It offers the protection abroad, meaning publicly, in your travels. Because the passport is recognized universally, right? And the United States of America is in existence only because it is in agreement already with Moorish law. Now, let's come back up here. Allegiance, to bind. What was bound? This is what came from that binding. Two governments. This one made de jure by this government, right? So this government came up under the wing of this government. And by doing that, they united and became one. They became one government. And this government is created by the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship made one. And in that treaty, it states that we shall come under one sign and signal. One. One. What is that one government that was created from two? Because just because the United States wasn't, let's say, federally recognized by us, doesn't mean that they weren't still a body politic. It doesn't mean that the people who were in alignment here weren't still united, weren't still putting their energies together to try to make something happen. So even if Morocco didn't recognize the United States, or didn't recognize the if Morocco didn't recognize the United States of America, they still would have existed. Things would have been a lot harder for them, but they still would have existed. But things would have been a lot more challenging. That's all that means. But it doesn't mean that these people, as a society, as a body politic, did not exist. The recognition from Morocco gave them a second chance at life. It gave them breath. This government breathed life into this entity and formed it in its likeness and image. And from this government accepting this society under its wing and forming something that both can agree to, we came up with the United States of America. Simple. This is where the allegiance is. The allegiance is to one. One. I'm not talking about allegiance to Washington State, allegiance to Florida State, allegiance to New York State, allegiance to Nevada State. No, I'm talking about allegiance to your indigenous Moorish society and the United States of America. That's where the treaty happens. Okay? That's where our full American citizenship is. That's where it's at. We have our own society geographically located at each of these state republics. The state republics. And in between here, just think about in between here is all the state ofs of all those state republics, the corporate state ofs that handle the commerce. Right? So now when you form your more perfect union, for you as a human being, you should be a part of an indigenous society. And then you should be federally recognized by having your passport as a national. That's your federal recognition as a Moor, because your indigenous society should be communicating to the Department of State in DC on your behalf, reflecting the fact that, hey, you're a member of this state, and your state is geographically located at one of the is geographically located in one of the several states, which in turn creates the more perfect union once you receive your passport, because now you should have your state ID from your indigenous society, and you should have your passport ID, both reflecting your free national name and your free religious headdress. That's it. That's the difference between a citizen and a national. This is how the Jews do it. This is how the nationals from different parts of Africa do it. They come here, they maintain their nationality. They maintain their allegiance to their country. Okay? And then they come in agreement with the United States of America by having their passport. Simple. It's not hard. It's really simple. It's really simple. Now, I want to get into allegiance some more. I want to look at the synonyms of allegiance, right? Let's read this here. Loyalty or commitment of a subordinate to a superior or of an individual to a group or cause. So like I said, understand that the empire is bigger than me. I'm subject to the empire. The empire is bigger than me. I'm just a speck compared to the cause. What is the cause? The cause is peace. The cause is Islam. That is the cause. And my group, the group that I have allegiance to, should be in alignment with that cause of peace. So yes, even towards my state government, my indigenous state government, I am a subordinate. Compared to the rest of my people, I'm subordinate. Me compared to the rest of the Moorish nation, I'm subordinate. Although I am part and parcel, I'm just one part. How big is the parcel is the question. Okay? So let's not entertain this side of the definition. That's why they have an or. No different than how in the IRS manual it says that an infant is a decedent or grantor owner. So this just means option. You can be either this or you can be either that. So as far as allegiance goes, loyalty or commitment of a subordinate to an individual, loyalty or commitment of an individual to a group or cause. Okay? So it's either loyalty or commitment of a subordinate to a superior. Oh, and a subordinate is someone who's forced to abide by laws. Okay? Individual is somebody who's free, who's doing it voluntarily. So me honoring my treaty is me voluntarily being in, is voluntarily having allegiance to the United States of America. That's what I said my entire life. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. The problem was I wasn't myself being in alignment with the treaty, being in alignment with my society, with my Aboriginal indigenous society. That was the problem, because my ancestors made the republic. Your ancestors made this republic. This is your shit. Period. There's no separation. It is one. We are working our way, or I should say we are cycling our way to 2020. Do you know why everything is so crucial in 2020? Because 2020 is a reflection of 20. 2-0 reflecting 2-0, which creates one. Reflection. Reflection. We reflect on them, they reflect on us. us reflecting back to each other creates the United States of America. And this is encompassing all of the state republics, which is called the several states, also known as the Continental United States. I'm just making it clear, y'all. This is where it's at, man. This is what the prophet was talking about. It's not complicated at all. It is not. Okay. Got past that. Now check this. This is the Articles of Confederation, right? The first document attesting to the creation of the United States of America. Okay? Articles of Confederation and perpetual union between the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Providence, Plantations, Connecticut, New York, etc., etc. These are what were created at the time. But don't forget, around the 1900s, in this state territory, this state republic, there was another state geographically located there. And that state was called a Moorish American society. Remember that. So that means we all can do the same thing. The style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. See how it's in all properly spelled out. Okay. Each state, remember now, there's a state in a state. I guess the Moorish American society would be considered the nation state, huh? The nation state. The nation state. Okay. So you better be a part of a nation state. That's what I'm getting around to. Each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. The said states hereby severally enter into a firm league of friendship with each other for their common defense, the security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare, binding themselves to assist each other against all force offered to or attacks made upon them, or any of them, on account of religion, sovereignty, trade, or any other pretense whatever. So let me tell you what that means. That means that, for example, you see this Moorish American society that was set up here, geographically located at Pennsylvania State Republic? If they were to be attacked, or their liberties were to be trampled on, or infringed on account of their religion, their sovereignty, their trade, or any other pretense whatever, no state would be allowed to do that. Why? Because the said states hereby severally enter into a firm league of friendship with each other. Don't forget what a state is, y'all. It's a society. So that means Pennsylvania state, or I should say the state of Pennsylvania, has to respect the laws and independence of that Moorish American society, which is another state, a nation state. To better secure and perpetuate mutual friendship and intercourse among the people of the different states in this union, the free inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice excepted, shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. Okay? Who are the free inhabitants? The free inhabitants would be those very Moors of that Moorish American society in Pennsylvania State Republic. Those are the free inhabitants. And all the free inhabitants, except for paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice, shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. That means those people who actually have state IDs and you know, who are U.S. citizens. I should just say, for people who are U.S. citizens. And those U.S. citizens who have allegiance to those particular state republics, right, have rights in those states. That's what it means to have allegiance to the state residents. That's what it's talking about. But they're talking about, see, the free inhabitants, who are what? The people. The people. The people. The free inhabitants of each of these states, meaning the nationals, who have their own indigenous society created and established. The inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice accepted, shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of free citizens in the several states. Several states. Continental United States, y'all. And the people of each state. That means the people of Pennsylvania State Republic and the people of the Moorish American Society shall free ingress and regress to and from any other state, and shall enjoy therein all the privileges of trade and commerce. So that means, although the people of the Moorish American Society physically did not leave the geographical jurisdiction of Pennsylvania State Republic, they were still having ingress and regress to and from any other state. So when they were doing commerce, they were leaving that Moorish American Society and going into Pennsylvania Republic to do commerce, even though they physically did not leave that geographical location. I'm hoping that makes sense and doesn't make your brain explode. Although I do hope it makes your brain explode. It's a twister. But that's how the system is set. Okay? Also, I want you to understand how deep it is with the several states. A lot of people talk about the National Guard, right? This is USC Title 32. All right? One-on-one definitions dealing with the National Guard. Well, actually, let me just pull up Title 32 so I can see what it is. The National Guard, okay? That's what it's called. Now, check this out. For purposes of other laws relating to the militia, the National Guard, the Army National Guard of the United States, and the Air National Guard of the United States, the term territory includes Guam and the Virgin Islands. Armed Forces means the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. National Guard means the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard. Army National Guard means that part of the organized militia of the what? The several states. Then the Pope put out an edict in 2014 talking about bringing back the Grand Army of the Republic. The Grand Army of the Republic, guess who's included in that? Yes, the National Guard. You know why? Because the National Guard is tied to what? The several states. The several states are tied to whom? The United States of America. Or I should say the several states are tied to whom? Morocco. With their treaty alliance, combining the two like Voltron creates what? The United States of America. Bang. So you see how they said the several states and territories, Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. Active and inactive. Okay? The District of Columbia is the office, okay, where the several states combine and push out what they need to push out to maintain peace for the United States of America collectively. Okay? This is the body. This is the body. This is the brain. Let's look at it like that. This is the body. This is the brain. All right? Just think about it like the central nervous system. And that's how it functions. Okay? So the National Guard is tied to the several states. Okay? And so if you go back on the video and just start from the beginning and really pause and really analyze what I'm reading through and what we're breaking down, let it start to click. Okay? and really see that we're not going outside ourselves dealing with the United States of America. We have a treaty alliance. Oh, I didn't even finish with allegiance. Okay, so check this out. What's loyalty? The quality of being loyal to someone or something. Something can be a cause, right? A strong feeling of support or allegiance. Aren't we, as the Moors, supporting the United States of America? Faithfulness. The quality of being faithful. Fidelity. So now you know what fidelity means. Faithfulness. Faithfulness to a person, cause, or belief, demonstrated by continuing loyalty and support. All these are tied into allegiance. Just want you to know that. And if you acknowledge the fact you have a treaty, then you cannot not acknowledge this. Obedience, compliance with an order, request, or law, or submission to another's authority. There's that or word again, or. So as far as we go, our obedience is compliance with an order, request, or law. And that law is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's the law we are in compliance with, and us as Moors being in compliance with our treaty is putting us in a state of obedience, but not submission. Not the type that leads to submission to another's authority. We no longer have to be subjugated or subrogated for that matter. Commercially, we have a right to not be submitted or submissed physically, and we have a right to not be subrogated commercially. That's fact. All right. So our obedience is compliance, not submission. Our obedience is compliance, not submission. We have a treaty in place that is in compliance with their laws, as well as the laws being in compliance with our laws. Homage, special honor or respect shown publicly. Special honor or respect shown publicly. Us being Moors, us being ourselves, naturally we will have special honor or respect shown publicly. Via what? That passport. That's for who? American citizens. Who's an American citizen again? I'll let you answer that question. Devotion, love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a person, activity, or cause. Our devotion is to peace. That's why we have a treaty of peace and friendship. The cause has always been peace. Islam. And I'm going to just leave it like that, done data. Make sure I got all this out. All right, we know what the American citizen is. You know, take your time and head back. If you got to read upon this. Cool. I want to read this, and then we're going to get into the big thing, right? All right. This is resolution number 75. Mr. Wickett, Mr. Speaker, I desire at this time to call up resolution number 75, printer's number 1034. The resolution was read by the clerk as follows. In the House of Representatives, April 17, 1933, many sons and daughters of that proud and handsome race which inspired the architecture of Northern Africa and carried into Spain, which would be Florida, the influence of its artistic temperaments, have become citizens of this nation. In the city of Philadelphia, there exists a Moorish American society made up of Moors who have found here the end of their quest for a home and of the children of those who journeyed here from the plains of Morocco, Indiana. So, and yes, I'm saying exactly what I'm saying. So, do you see how Pennsylvania is one of the it's one of the original 13 colonies, but it's also one of the several states. It's one of the original 48 states that was created, okay, which is forming the United States of America. So Pennsylvania was one of those states. So now, in Pennsylvania, state republic, right? Because we're dealing with the United States of America. In the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? There exists a Moorish American society. So that means within the state republics, we establish our own foreign state due to the fact that it is under trusteeship, right? If you read how the prophet set up the Moorish Temple of America, it is a trust. And he replaced the trustee with sheikh. So the grand sheikhs essentially are the trustees of the members of the temple. That's the position of the grand sheikhs. They are the trustees. The people are in position of power to dictate or delegate what they need done to the trustee, and then the trustee is supposed to make that happen for the betterment of the entire group or the entire temple. That's what a trustee, a grand sheikh is, or a sheikh, a trustee. Okay, so in the state republic, there is a Moorish American society. There's a foreign state made up of Moors who have allegiance to that Moorish American society. Okay? Now, outside of that Moorish American society, if these Moors are traveling internationally, okay, and they're not residents of the state, then they would have a passport on them, stating that, as a national. They would have a passport as a national, also in their free national name, also with their estate corrected and put into proper order, so that way it can reflect their information as being the owner, the heir, the grantor of it, and not the decedent, the civil little mortus, the straw. Okay? So understand, in 1933, there's a Moorish American society in one of the several states. So that Moorish American society, located in the several states, is constitutional. They're very constitutional. So they have their state already set up. That's what a state is. A state is a body politic, aka a society, which is a group of men who put their efforts together, who share a common agenda, and who wish to make that, achieve that goal together. Because many hands make lighter work. Okay? That's what a society is. And in a society, they normally share similar culture, similar ancestral heritage, similar history, similar bloodline. This is what a society is. A society is a family. Government is family. The state is family. Everything is family. Okay? So what they're saying here is, in the city of Philadelphia, there's a family established that are not residents of the state. Or maybe some of them did have state IDs. State IDs in their free national name, which would mean that they are still a national and still operating under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. However, they're subject to the laws of that particular state, rather than just being subject to the federal constitution. Okay? Which is general above all. It's neutral. Because every state has their own language. They got their own flip. They got their own hustle. The federal keeps everybody neutral. Everybody's on an even playing field. Okay? Dealing with the federal constitution. So, this is why, for me personally, it is more beneficial to have your national ID from your state in place, and then you have your passport. So that way you have your protections both privately and publicly, at home and abroad. Okay? With the laptop?
Yeah.
Look on the floor. If not on the floor, look in that bag.
The blue one?
Not the blue one. Just look on the floor there by the bed. And maybe you can open the door too if you need more light. Okay. Moorish American Society. Boom, boom. All right, ran through that. We don't need to keep on going on that. The Iroquois Confederacy, grandparent to American democracy. It is not common. It is not commonly understood to this day that the United States of America was not actually just formed through looking at models of European countries. They actually were able to get a first-hand experience with arguably the world's oldest democracy systems, that of the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois Confederacy had impactful influence on the United States' conception of its Constitution, Bill of Rights, and other facets of government. We discuss this fact in greater detail as you read on. Though historical facts appear to be inconclusive, some say a time between 1570 and 1600 was when the Iroquois Confederacy began. The first United States of America, y'all. The Iroquois Confederacy formed in a time of civil unrest, violence, and murdering. It was very unruly at the time, with much struggle and strife against the nations in the region where the Iroquois Confederacy was located, modern-day upstate New York. Hello, New York. So when y'all say y'all in the Empire State, now y'all know why it's the Empire State. It's the Empire State because the emperors in that particular state got busy and they helped create,
Not in their period at all.
Well, I don't know, bro, because I haven't used it all day. So I guess you're just going to have to wait till I'm done. Yeah. Okay. The Iroquois Confederacy had impactful influence on the United States' conception of its Constitution, Bill of Rights, and other facets of government. We discuss this fact in greater detail as you read on. Oh yeah, I read through this. Between 1570 and 1600 was when the Iroquois Confederacy began. The Iroquois Confederacy formed in a time of, I read through this, upstate New York. Yup. So the formers of the United States of America are in New York. Now do you understand why George Washington was writing to the Sultan of Morocco from New York? Because everything was happening in New York. The Iroquois Confederacy was the one constructing everything. Get that. It was said that Decanawida, also known as the Great Peacemaker, was the one who had the vision to bring together the different Native American nations in the surrounding upstate New York area to build strength, peace, and solidarity between them. The Great Peacemaker went around gathering disciples for his vision of a unified tribal nation. Sound like the Jesus story, don't it? Noble Ali could be in that. Elijah Muhammad could be in that. Khalid Muhammad could be in that. El Hajj Malik El Shabazz could be in that. And the list goes on and on. Marcus Garvey could be in that. Okay. They traveled uniting from the west the Mohawks to the east of the Senecas. With all the area tribes together, they had to bring the final message of peace to the chief of the Onondaga Nation, which was located in the center of land between the uniting tribes. After the Great Peacemaker and the rest of the neighboring tribes were able to explain the idea of the tribes, working together, they were able to persuade him to unite. A formation called the Great Law of Peace was set into motion. See. Check this out. Y'all can read this article on your own time. Y'all can see the link. I'll go back to the top once I'm done. Y'all can read through this on your own time. The Iroquois Confederacy moved through time with their influence spanning far and wide. Some saying that their influence went from the far east coast of North America far south and west as the Gulf of Mexico. The Iroquois Confederacy's power and influence led some settlers to call them the Romans of the New World. A sixth nation joined the Iroquois Confederacy in 1722, making the Iroquois Confederacy famously now known as the Six Nations. The structure of this indigenous tribal nation intrigued and inspired United States of American founding fathers. After American colonies were able to secede from England, founding fathers such as Ben Franklin, Thomas Edison, and George Washington sought out the council of the indigenous Iroquois nation. Some of these founding fathers, such as Ben Franklin, have been said to have gone to attend the higher councils of discussion between the Iroquois chiefs. He is famously noted for suggesting to England, before America succeeded, it would be a strange thing if six nations of ignorant savages should be capable of forming a scheme for such a union and be able to execute it in such a manner as that it has subsisted ages and appears indissoluble, meaning it can't be dissolved, and yet that a like union should be impracticable for 10 or a dozen English colonies to whom it is more necessary and must be more advantageous, and who cannot be supposed to want an equal understanding of their interests. Now, it came around the 20th centennial celebration of the United States Constitution that brought light that the Iroquois Confederacy certainly had impacted on the document. This light brought a recognition from Congress in October of 1988 that says its impact was noted to have inspired people such as Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, and in fact contributed to the creation of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. This notice that Congress passed also recognized the need to hold healthy relationships with the Native Americans, as well as uphold their treaties that they've made with them. What a piece of propaganda. Struggles like the face-off at Standing Rock is one of many tragic battles the Native Americans have continued to face to this day. Of course, we understand, and let's not take offense, but the people at Standing Rock who believe they are Native Americans, they are Native Americans, but they're not indigenous. They're not indigenous. They're not autochthon. They're not aboriginal. They come from us, but they are not us. They are not the original peoples. They come from Mongolia. I hate to say it like that. That's the truth. Due to knowledge. This is because the corporations really run the show in this country. Until it changes, I wouldn't expect to see much change in how the government treats our dear Native Americans. It was noted from that recognition that it would be added to the history books that the Great Iroquois Confederacy had contributed directly to the creation of the United States of America. Many still do not realize the impact that the indigenous people of North America had on our country. It is very important to remember your roots in order to be able to relate to the world around you. This recognition has not been well remembered or shared, for unfortunately, our country still easily forgets the role of the indigenous people. The indigenous people, especially the Iroquois Confederacy, are effectively the grandparents of the United States of America. The fact that Native Americans are still oppressed to this day is sickening. They're not the real ones. We see disrespect to them such as the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. This pipeline's construction is set to stretch across a chart of land marked to the Show Nation in North Dakota in the treaty. Troubles with the U.S. government upholding its agreements with the Native Americans need to end once and for all. Now let me go back up here. Let's pull up this recognition. Hope y'all ready for this. 100th Congress, 2D session, right? In the Senate of the United States, October 5th, 1988. Received and referred to the Select Committee on Indian Affairs, October 21st, 1988. Committee discharged. Concurrent resolution to acknowledge the contribution of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution and to reaffirm the continuing government-to-government relationship between Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts of the Six Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. Whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. And whereas since the formation of the United States, the Congress has recognized the sovereign status of Indian tribes and has, through the exercise of powers reserved to the federal governments in the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, dealt with Indian tribes on a government-to-government basis, and has, through the Treaty Clause, entered into 370 treaties with Indian tribal nations. Whereas from the first treaty entered into with an Indian nation, the treaty with the Delaware Indians of September 17, 1778, the Congress has assumed a trust responsibility and obligation to Indian tribes and their members. Whereas this trust responsibility calls for Congress to exercise the utmost good faith in dealings with Indians, as provided in the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Whereas the judicial system of the United States has consistently recognized and reaffirmed this social relationship, this special relationship, now therefore be it. Resolved by the House of Representatives that 1. The Congress, on the occasion of the 200th anniversary of the signing of the United States Constitution, acknowledges the contribution made by the Iroquois Confederacy and other Indian nations to the formation and development of the United States. The Congress also hereby reaffirms the constitutionality, the constitutionally recognized government-to-government relationship with Indian tribes, which has been the cornerstone of this nation's official Indian policy. The Congress specifically acknowledges and reaffirms the trust responsibility. Let me say that again. The Congress specifically acknowledges and reaffirms the trust responsibility and obligation of the United States government to Indian tribes, including Alaska Natives, for their preservation, protection, and enhancement, including the provision of health, education, social, and economic assistance programs as necessary, and including the duty to assist tribes in their performance of governmental responsibility to provide for the social and economic well-being of their members and to preserve tribal cultural identity and heritage. And the Congress also acknowledges the need to exercise the utmost good faith in upholding its treaties with the various tribes, as the tribes understood them to be in the duty of a great nation to uphold its legal and moral obligations for the benefit of all its citizens, so that they and their posterity may also continue to enjoy the rights they have enshrined in the United States Constitution for time immemorial. That's what we did for the United States of America. Bang, bang. All right. I got some more for you too. It's going. You think it got heavy? It's gonna get a lot heavier. It's gonna get a lot heavier. All right.
Hey, peace. Happy Holy Day. What's going on, fam? It's your brother Cool. What up, what up, what up? Hey, man. So, I just want to let y'all know, off rip, this voting season, right? Listen to me, y'all. Listen to your brother. You vote for things that concern you. You do not vote. Put it like this. If your friend, right, is having a family vote in his house to change certain rules in his house dealing with him and his family, does your vote count? Would your vote be irrelevant? Don't worry, I'll wait. Oh no? Okay. It won't vote? Alright, cool. I'm glad we're on the same page. Alright, so let's take this same context to another level. I am domiciling in one house. It's called Washington, right? Washington State Republic. In this election season, I am being so-called asked or requested to vote. I'm speaking hypothetically, right? If I was a U.S. citizen, right? I'm speaking to, or you want me to vote pretty much on the laws and standards of D.C. Washington State and Washington, D.C. are two different houses. They are not the same house. Two different jurisdictions. Two different constitutions. Okay? Now, being that how I'm in one house, right? And it's not even like I'm in one house. It's like I'm at a territory or a geographical location known as Washington State. All right? At Washington State, I have within that my own state because I am a national, because I have permanent allegiance to a state. That state that I have permanent allegiance to is Sunelshi Amaru Republic. That is my state. Geographically, my state is located in what we now call today modernly Washington State Republic. There's a reason why I'm saying things how I'm saying it, y'all. Okay? Modernly called. So, being that everyone who votes, right? All the minors who vote, y'all votes get sent to the College of Electoral Voters. Is that it? Yeah, College of Electoral Voters. If you read any constitution, right? Hell, if you read the American Constitution, right? If you not only read the American Constitution, but you also specifically read and research the Northwest Ordinance, okay, of 1787, it explains to you specifically what the position of the governor is, what the position of the executive department of every state is, as well as the qualifications and requirements of voters. Do you know that all voters are supposed to be an elector? What is an elector, you ask? Because they're asking you to participate in an election. So therefore, to be a participant in an election, you would need electors who are going to elect a body or somebody in that election to an office to serve the electors. So think about the electors like the stakeholders, right, of a board, right? So check this out now. In order to be an elector, you have to be in full control of your estate. I repeat, in order to be an elector. Oh, and by the way, y'all, being an elector is constitutional. Did you know that? You are not dead or lost at sea or civiliter mortuus, but actually you're alive and in full life. Okay? In the eyes of the law. You have all your rights intact as they should be, or as they should have been from Jump Street. So if you don't have these things in place, if you have not authenticated your birth certificate, if you are not the holder in due course, if you are not in your free national name, if you're not in your proper person, you are not an elector. You are a 14th Amendment citizen. You are state property. You are what they will call a resident. And what you want to be is a non-resident alien. A resident is a thing. We're not things. Okay? So, to be a resident is to be a thing. So you need to be a non-resident alien. Why? Because as indigenous peoples, we were here with our own civilizations and governments built prior to the establishment of the United States of America in March 1st, 1781. So, due to that fact, oh, it seems like I visited here. Yes, sir. So, due to that fact, you know what I'm saying, we need to correct the record and also make sure that in order to vote or be an elector of your state, you need to be in control of your estate. So have you authenticated your birth certificate yet? If you have not, you need to stop playing games.
Truth, peace, freedom, justice, study to know what trusts they'll violate at any moment. Minorities, they don't be on it. Walk on eggshells, keep it cautious, anxiety. I'm feeling nauseous. Ignorance is bliss till you learn what the cost is. Said Moors, we on the rise. Look at us now. Push the mission forward. Make the prophet proud. Noble Jew Ali. Welcome to the city, fourth generation. No, he walking with me, more shit. Woke up, realized I was on a ward ship. Trading me like chattel property. Trading places, playing Monopoly. Authentic, can't copy me. Lies, can't rock with me. Truth, ever sharpens me. Love, despite you mocking me.